On that cold January morning in 1937, 22-year-old Billie Holiday knew the piece of paper in her hand would change America. But she didn't expect Count Basie's reaction. Basie said to Billie in the studio that day, "You're still too young. This song will be your end. I'm 33 years old. I have orchestra responsibilities. I can't take this risk." Lady Day's response was firm and clear. "This song belongs to every black person hanging from trees in the South." These words hit everyone in the studio right in the heart. Because the truth Billie Holiday was talking about was America's greatest shame, lynching. Young Lady Day decided that day to be not just a singer, but also the voice of her people. And this decision would make her one of the bravest women in American history, but also the most targeted. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel as we share the secrets of this shocking studio fight with you. We'll continue discovering the deepest mysteries of music history together. That morning, Columbia Records studio on 30th Street was bustling as usual. Recording sessions for Count Basie Orchestra's new album were underway. Producer John Hammond was very excited because he had managed to include Lady Day in Basie's orchestra. 22-year-old Billie Holiday was a rising star at the time, but hadn't yet made her big breakthrough. The morning sessions went routinely. Classics like 1 O'Clock Jump and Jumpin' at the Woodside were recorded on Basie's piano. Billie Holiday also sang several standard songs. But after the lunch break, everything changed. When Billie Holiday returned to the studio at 2 o'clock, she had a piece of paper in her hand that no one had seen. These were the notes of a special song she had written during the night. Lady Day's plan was simple. When her turn to record came, she would sing this song. But there was something she hadn't factored into her plan: Count Basie's reaction. When Billie approached the microphone at 3 o'clock, she opened the paper in her hand. "Today, I want to share a special song with you," she said. Count Basie was waiting curiously at the piano. But when Billie said the song's title, Basie's face immediately changed. "Strange fruit?" repeated Basie in amazement. "Billie, what does this mean?" Lady Day showed the paper in her hand to Basie. When Count started reading the first lines, his face went completely white. Because those lyrics contained topics that were dangerous to even mention in 1930s America. Basie jumped up. "You can't sing this song, Billie. This will destroy all of us." While the other musicians in the studio were trying to understand what was happening, producer John Hammond immediately grasped the seriousness of the situation. He told Lester Young, Buck Clayton, Freddie Green, and Walter Page, who were in the studio, to leave. After the musicians left, only Billie Holiday, Count Basie, John Hammond, and pianist Teddy Wilson remained in the studio. Wilson would later write this moment in his diary. "The tension in the room was so intense that it became difficult to breathe. Basie was trembling with fear, Hammond was pacing in panic, and Billie maintained her composure." The argument that began between these four people would become one of the most secret moments in music history, because what was discussed that day wasn't just about a song. It was about America confronting its conscience. Count Basie's concerns were justified. In 1937, lynching was still a widespread practice in America. In southern states, hundreds of black people were killed each year without any court decision. Writing a song about this topic was equivalent to committing suicide at the time. "Billie, you're still a very young girl," said Basie. "If you sing this song, your career will end, and not just yours, but the orchestra's too. I'm 33 years old. I'm responsible for the livelihood of 16 musicians. I can't put them in danger." Lady Day's answer was determined. "Count, I didn't write this song. I just put it into words. This song belongs to every black person hanging from trees in the South. If we don't sing it, who will?" These words made Basie even more worried. "Are you thinking about the consequences of this? Southern radio stations will boycott us. Record companies will cancel contracts. Worse, the KKK might target us." Hammond intervened. "Billie has some valid points, but Basie's concerns are also real. Maybe we can sing this song at another time, under different circumstances." But Billie Holiday was determined. "There's no such thing as another time. This truth is happening now. It must be sung now." As the argument continued, Billie Holiday began sharing her personal story. She talked about her childhood in Baltimore, the injustices she witnessed, but what was most affecting was the birth story of the song. "Last week I saw a photo in Harlem," said Billie. "It was a photo of two young black men who were lynched in Indiana. White people around them were smiling and posing. When I saw that photo, something broke inside me. That night I went home and wrote these lyrics." Count Basie softened when he heard this personal story. He had seen similar things in his childhood too. "Billie, I understand what you're feeling. I also heard lynching news when I was growing up in Red Bank, but this song is too powerful, too dangerous." Teddy Wilson intervened. "Maybe we could change part of the song? Use softer language." Billie's answer was definitive. "There's not a single word to be changed in this song. Every word came from my heart and every word is true." At this point, Hammond made a suggestion. "Maybe we could consider recording the song not with the Basie Orchestra but solo. It would be a smaller risk." But Count Basie wasn't warm to this suggestion. "John, Billie is part of our orchestra. We can't leave her alone." A turning point occurred in the third hour of the argument. Billie Holiday began playing the song's melody on the piano. As her voice slowly rose, everyone in the studio was mesmerized. The song's power was so impactful that concerns were set aside. When Count Basie heard the song, he realized this wasn't just a protest song, but also a work of art. "Billie, this song is really powerful, but I'm still scared." Hammond was also affected. "This song could change music history, but it also carries great risk." Billie Holiday made a historic decision at that moment. "If you won't come with me, I'll sing this song alone, but I won't give up singing it." Faced with this determination, Count Basie also made his decision. "Okay, Billie, if you're that determined, I'm behind you, but I have conditions." Count Basie's conditions were these. The song would only be sung at special concerts, wouldn't be played on radio, and they wouldn't expect support from major record companies. "We must be very careful when singing this song," said Basie. Hammond also joined the agreement. "I'll talk to a small, independent record company. Maybe Commodore Records could take this risk." Teddy Wilson also expressed his opinion. "Even banning this song could increase its power. Sometimes the most powerful songs are the forbidden ones." Billie Holiday had finally gotten what she wanted. But this beginning was just the start. Strange Fruit's real journey was just beginning. As they left the studio that day, Count Basie gave Billie one last warning. "Billie, this song will change your life. I hope you're ready." Lady Day's answer was simple but effective. "We don't have to live to be ready, Count. Sometimes we just have to do what's right." What happened that day remained a secret among the four people in the studio. Hammond didn't include that day's argument in the studio records. It only appeared in the records as an alternative repertoire meeting. The other members of Basie's orchestra never learned what was discussed that day. Lester Young wondered for years, but Basie never told. According to Buck Clayton, Count began treating Billie differently after that day, more protectively, more supportively. In Hammond's private notes, these lines about that day read, "Today, I witnessed a historic decision. Billie Holiday decided to confront America's conscience. This courage will make her great, but will also make her pay great prices." In his diary, Teddy Wilson wrote, "Today Billie Holiday stopped being just a singer and became an activist. I witnessed this transformation and was excited." 2 weeks after the studio fight, Billie Holiday performed Strange Fruit live for the first time. The venue was Café Society, and this performance would become one of the turning points in music history. Count Basie wasn't there that night, because he still hadn't overcome his concerns, but Teddy Wilson was there and watched Lady Day's performance. According to Wilson, Billie didn't just sing that night, she touched America's soul. The silence at Café Society after the performance became legendary. No one applauded, no one spoke, because everyone was in shock. Billie Holiday was crying backstage when she left the stage, but these weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of relief. She had finally said what she wanted to say. Years later, Count Basie would confess that he regretted not supporting Billie that day. In an interview he gave in the 1950s, he said, "The day Billie showed the courage to sing Strange Fruit, I acted cowardly. I left her alone. This is my biggest regret." Basie also added, "I later understood that Billie was right. That song really changed America. I wish I could have been by her side that day." This confession also changed the relationship between the two great musicians. When they came together again in the 1950s, Basie tried to give Billie more support. John Hammond had secretly recorded some parts of that day's argument. These recordings came to light in 1987, after Hammond's death. The recordings clearly captured Billie Holiday's determination and Count Basie's concerns. The most striking part was Billie's words, "This song is bigger than me." At that moment, a 22-year-old young woman sensed the magnitude of her own destiny. Hammond's recordings also contained Basie's final words, "Billie, if you're going to walk this path, you won't walk alone. I'm behind you." This statement became a symbol of solidarity between the two musicians. The argument that day didn't just lead to the birth of Strange Fruit. It also changed musicians' understanding of social responsibility. After 1937, many jazz musicians began using their music for social messages. Artists like Max Roach, Charlie Mingus, and Abbey Lincoln walked the path that Billie Holiday had opened. Count Basie was also affected by this change. During the civil rights movement in the 1960s, he gave support concerts with his orchestra. "Billie taught me what courage means," he said. In 2017, new documents from that day's studio session were found in Columbia Records archives. These documents contained Hammond's notes about Billie Holiday. "This young woman will change music history, but the price will be heavy." Among the documents was also Basie's private letter. The letter read, "Billie Holiday is brave, but her youth blinds her. This song will make her famous, but also destroy her." These prophecies would unfortunately come true. Strange Fruit made Billie Holiday famous, but also made her a target for the FBI. In his final interview before dying in 1986, Teddy Wilson said this about that day's events. "Billie Holiday made history that day. I was just a witness. I still admire her courage." According to Wilson, the most impressive moment was Billie's words, "I didn't write this song. I just put it into words. Those words showed me this. Some truths are so powerful that they wait to express themselves." Billie just became the instrument. Today, Strange Fruit is recognized as one of America's most important protest songs. The work chosen as Song of the 20th Century by Time magazine began with the argument at Columbia Records that day. At the memorial concert held for the song's 80th anniversary in 2017, Count Basie's son Eric Basie gave this speech. "My father knew he made a mistake that day, but he never hid his respect for Billie Holiday's courage." Today, that studio is considered one of the sacred places of music history. A plaque on the wall commemorating Billie Holiday's words from that day reads, "This song belongs to every Black person hanging from trees in the South." After Strange Fruit's first performance at Café Society, New York music circles were shaken. No one had heard such a song before. Some musicians applauded Billie Holiday's courage, while others were worried. Duke Ellington approached Billie after watching the performance. "Young girl, you've entered a very dangerous path, but maybe this path is necessary." These words showed that even the doyens of the jazz world understood the song's importance. Fats Waller was more worried. "Billie, this song will make you famous, but also put you in the crosshairs." Waller's concerns weren't empty because reactions were starting to come from southern states. Count Basie was still undecided. He didn't talk about the song to orchestra members. When asked by Lester Young, "What do you think about Billie's new song?" Basie's answer was vague. "It's a powerful song, but very risky." This uncertainty showed Basie's internal conflict. On one hand, he knew Billie was right. On the other, he was worried about the orchestra's future. When news of Strange Fruit reached the South, the reaction was very harsh. Radio stations in states like Alabama, Mississippi, and Georgia stopped playing Count Basie Orchestra's songs. The reason wasn't explicit, but everyone knew why. The Atlanta Journal, in an article titled "Northern Musicians' Anti-South Propaganda," targeted Billie Holiday. The article said, "Such songs are disruptive to regional peace." Worse, some Southern club owners began canceling Count Basie Orchestra concerts. A club owner in New Orleans explicitly said, "If that girl who sings that song is in this orchestra, they can't play here." This economic pressure proved Count Basie's concerns right. The orchestra was starting to lose revenue. Seeing the situation getting serious, producer John Hammond tried to mediate. First, he talked to Count Basie. "Count, I think these reactions will be temporary. The song's power will be appreciated over time." But Basie wasn't convinced. "John, I have 16 musicians. I have to think about their families. If these boycotts continue, the orchestra will fall apart." Hammond then met with Billie Holiday. "Billie, maybe you could consider not singing the song for a while, until the atmosphere calms down." Lady Day's answer was definitive. "John, I was born to sing this song. No one can silence me." This determination both worried and impressed Hammond. Finally, Hammond decided to bring Billie and Basie together. Maybe if they talked face to face, they could find a solution. In February 1937, Hammond brought Billie Holiday and Count Basie together again. This time the atmosphere was calmer because the initial shock had passed. Basie spoke openly to Billie. Strange Fruit is really a powerful song, but my orchestra is in a difficult situation. Our southern concerts are being canceled. Billie also responded understandingly. Count, I'm sorry I put you in a difficult position, but this song is bigger than me. I can't give up singing it. In this dialogue, the two musicians understood each other. Basie stated that he respected Billie's determination. Billie also said she found Basie's concerns justified. Finally, they reached an agreement. Billie Holiday could sing Strange Fruit in her solo career, but not with Count Basie Orchestra. This agreement was the beginning of Billie Holiday's transition to a solo career. She would now be an independent artist who could make her own decisions, not dependent on big orchestras. The first step was finding a small record company. Following Hammond's suggestion, she met with Commodore Records. Company owner Milt Gabler was ready to take the risk. This song is very controversial, but also very powerful, said Gabler. Maybe that's exactly why we should record it. In 1939, the first record of Strange Fruit was made. In Commodore Records' small studio, Billie Holiday made history. Count Basie wasn't at that recording session, but Teddy Wilson was there. Wilson accompanied Billie on piano. This showed that the 1937 studio fight had ended in reconciliation. From 1937 to 1939, Count Basie constantly experienced internal reckoning about the Billie Holiday decision. He didn't know how to explain the situation to orchestra members. Lester Young asked Basie, Count, why doesn't Billie play with us anymore? Basie's answer was vague. She chose to walk her own path. But the truth was much more complex. Basie knew Billie was right, but couldn't say it openly, because this could worsen the orchestra's already difficult financial situation. During this period, Basie's behavior changed. He became more closed, more thoughtful. According to Buck Clayton, Count wasn't as cheerful as before. It was like he was constantly thinking about something. When the Strange Fruit record came out in 1939, no one predicted it would have such a big impact. Despite coming from a small company, the record sold quickly in big cities. The New York Times made this comment about the record. This song makes us confront America's shameful truths. It's disturbing but necessary. Count Basie was watching this success. He privately bought the record and listened to it. One of the orchestra members saw him listening. Count's eyes were filled with tears. I realized he seemed regretful. This success caused Basie to re-question his 1937 decision. Maybe he should have supported Billie, stood by her side. As the 1940s began, Count Basie's attitude began to change. Seeing Strange Fruit's success, Basie became more open to socially conscious songs. In 1943, the orchestra began including anti-war songs. This was different from Basie's cautious attitude in 1937. One of the orchestra members made this observation. Count now wanted to play not just entertainment music, but meaningful songs too. This change showed the late effect of the lesson Billie Holiday had given him. In the 1950s, Count Basie and Billie Holiday's paths crossed again. This time Basie was different, more understanding, more supportive. In 1956, both performed at the same jazz festival. When they met backstage, Basie said to Billie, I made a mistake in 1937. I should have supported you. Billie's answer was forgiving. Count, everyone was scared then. You had legitimate concerns too. This meeting melted the ice between the two musicians. The past disagreement was now behind them. In 1957, Count Basie and Billie Holiday made plans to organize a joint concert. This concert would symbolize the reconciliation 20 years after the 1937 separation. The plan was this. Billie Holiday would perform solo accompanied by the Basie Orchestra, and at the end of the concert, she would sing Strange Fruit. I'm not afraid to play this song anymore, said Basie. Billie was right. This song needed to be sung, but unfortunately, this concert never happened. Billie Holiday's health deteriorated, and plans were canceled. When Billie Holiday's health condition became critical in 1958 to 1959, Count Basie stood by her. When he learned that Lady Day had financial difficulties, he secretly sent help. That girl showed courage in 1937. Now it's our turn, Basie told orchestra members. This support showed the change in Basie's character. He was no longer just thinking about himself and his orchestra. He cared about the entire music community. When Basie received news of Billie's death, he was very sad. We lost her, but her song will live on, he said. In 1960, Count Basie made a historic decision. He included Strange Fruit in the orchestra repertoire. This was a late acceptance after 23 years, but it was meaningful. They gave their first performance at Carnegie Hall. The concert program had this note: "We present this song in memory of Billie Holiday, who showed courage in 1937. This performance created great resonance in the music world." Now, Strange Fruit wasn't just Billie Holiday's song, it was the common heritage of the entire music community. When the civil rights movement gained strength in the 1960s, Count Basie took an active role. He supported Martin Luther King Jr.'s marches with his orchestra. "Billie Holiday taught me social responsibility," said Basie. "I understand now what I didn't understand in 1937." He was now making not just swing but meaningful music too. In the 1970s, Count Basie began speaking openly about the 1937 events. In his interview with Downbeat magazine, he said, "Billie Holiday was braver than me in 1937. That young girl taught lessons to old men. I wish I could have been by her side that day." This confession was the final link in Basie's character transformation. He was now openly admitting his past mistake. Today's music historians interpret the 1937 events from different perspectives. Some think Count Basie was right because the risk was too great at the time. But the majority believes Billie Holiday's courage was more important. According to music historian Nat Hentoff, art sometimes requires risk. Billie Holiday took this risk and history proved her right. Today, that historic studio has been turned into a museum. The room where the 1937 fight took place has been named the Billie Holiday Count Basie Room. On the room's wall hangs a quote from that day's argument: "This song belongs to every black person hanging from trees in the South." Billie Holiday, January 15, 1937. When Count Basie died in 1984, Strange Fruit was played at his funeral. This was a symbol of his finally accepting the song. Basie's son Eric said that his father constantly thought about that day in his final years. "My father never forgot Billie Holiday. He always expressed how much he respected her." In 2017, a special memorial concert was held for Strange Fruit's 80th anniversary. The concert celebrated both Billie Holiday's and Count Basie's legacies. The current leader of Count Basie Orchestra said in his speech that night, "The argument that took place in 1937 was one of the most important moments in music history. Two great artists, two different views, but the same goal, telling the truth. The fight that took place at Columbia Records on that cold January day in 1937 wasn't just a disagreement between two musicians. It was about the power of music, the artist's responsibility, and the importance of courage." With the determination 22-year-old Billie Holiday showed that day, she changed the course of music history. Count Basie's concerns were understandable, but ultimately wrong. The words spoken in the studio that day still echo today. The words, "This song belongs to every black person hanging from trees in the South," define not just that period, but today's struggles too. The story of Count Basie and Billie Holiday shows the role of art in social change. Sometimes artists must take risks, show courage, and tell the truth. The argument that began in 1937 actually never ended. Every time Strange Fruit is sung, that day's fight is relived, and each time Billie Holiday's courage wins. This story also inspires young artists. Sometimes the things old people are afraid of are the things young people need to do. Billie Holiday understood this at age 22, and history proved her right. Count Basie later realized his mistake and tried to make amends. This also shows that it's never too late. What's important is being on the right side in the end. That studio fight will be remembered as one of the most important moments in music history. Because that day, not just a song was born, but a movement began.